Hello, let's work on an open source project today. I've been working with large language models, learning about retrieval augmented generation based on large amounts of text and vectorizing the text for search and retrieval to enhance prompts with additional information and get richer results. Today we're going to use the Chainlit library. It's a toolkit to help you make chat-based interfaces written primarily in Python and TypeScript. Primarily in TypeScript with Python on the back end. And we're going to take lessons from the previous sessions where we've built these retrieval augmented generation or RAG pipelines using Langflow, and we're going to try to build that in code here following the Chainlit documentation. So I've got a project cloned locally. The source is on GitHub. The project is empty right now. We haven't done anything yet, so it's just a basic repository with a README. I've got a branch locally, and I'll go ahead and open a terminal and get a Python project set up. Now I suppose we can use Python 3.12. So I'm just double checking that. That can cause problems sometimes. We're going to call the Python virtual environment module, creating a virtual environment in .venv. That's kind of the convention that I use. I'll create a folder here. Virtual environment's just a folder. That includes Python, binary, and pip, everything else. Then we need to activate that. On Mac and Linux, it's just a matter of source, the path, to the activate command, and that just changes our virtual environment. It activates that and changes my shell to show that, hey, you're inside of a virtual environment now. From here, we can see that I'm using the Python that's in this virtual environment folder, .venv bin Python rather than my global Python. That just keeps things organized and clean, so that the dependencies I install for this project don't leak over into other projects. But, this is one of the biggest hurdles when even getting started with an existing project or a new project, getting the virtual environment set up. I've helped several friends with coding projects getting started on open source, and inevitably the first time we come to the virtual environment setup, there's all sorts of gotchas. So I'm using one of the most simple and straightforward ways, just using the Python VN module, and we're going to use pip. We're not using any other tools currently. So we're going to pip install Chainlit. I think I'm going to read the docs as we go. And it's going to collect its dependencies. Starlet, maybe fast APIs in there. It's going to get some wheels, but it doesn't look like it had to build anything. So it was actually, did create a wheel. But anyway, the installation went smoothly. This isn't always guaranteed to happen. So what we'll do to make this reproducible is we'll freeze these dependencies. Just to show you, right now all the dependencies are here in the lib Python 3.12 site packages. So all of those dependencies are just installed: Fast API, Google, gRPC, HTTPX, JWT, NumPy, ton of them. Starts to feel like Node.js. Anyway, we're going to freeze those because those are just temporarily stored in my virtual environment. And if we look at the git ignore, I'm going to, let's see, what do they do with virtual environments here? Scroll. MyPy, here it is. It's going to ignore environments. These are the conventional places to put, that people put virtual environments. venv, .venv, env, you know, etc. Or even sometimes they'll back it up, I guess. And so Git is just going to ignore everything inside of this folder in our case, which is good. You don't want to check that in. But in order to make it reproducible, we're going to freeze those. And the convention, this can be any text file. It's just to put in requirements.txt. And that just took all of the dependencies that I've installed and freezes their versions. Now, when it comes to updating and stuff later on, it's another story. So we would at that point need to probably turn to another tool to update dependencies. You can do it with pip, but usually I'll use like pip tools, or then you might switch to another Python package manager. There are a few. But good, now we have a basic project. And we can just start, it looks like, with Chainlit hello. So we can put a chapter marker, I suppose. So we'll run Chainlit hello. And right away, we have a basic chat interface. It's asking for my name. Chainlit installation is working. You can now start building your own Chainlit apps. So we're not connected to any large language model or anything. We've just got a call and response. So it's a hello world in essence. When you start Chainlit, you can tell it a greeting, kind of a message to display. It's designed as a chat interface, so it's going to echo or display the messages I send, and then whatever response comes back. Now, we didn't write any code for this, so I'm not able to kind of show how this code works. And we're not persisting conversations currently. I can create new chat, and dark mode is on by default. I like that. It hurts my eyes. The bright mode, it's like a big flashlight shining in your face. You know, these screens are kind of big. I have the luxury of having a kind of nice sized screen. So let's go straight to the docs. Oh, we have a pure Python quick start. Create a new file called demo.py. We're just going to learn the nuts and bolts today. But along the way, I am going to take snapshots. Now, I just noticed there's some new files here. Okay. So it created a markdown file. Interesting. And let me double check this. So where does this display? To modify the welcome string, edit the chainlit MD. In the root of your project, if you do not want the welcome screen, just leave this file empty. Well, I'll go ahead and commit it. So we'll just say initial project. We've got, looks like some locale stuff under Chainlit. Now this is a hidden folder. The question is, should this be persisted? Probably. It's a lot of config. Okay. Yeah, I think you do need this config. Okay. Okay, I'll just commit all these together. And I'm gonna take a quick break. It's kind of hot here and a bit humid. It's a rainy day, so I just need to set up a fan to get some air circulating. But I'll commit. We'll publish the branch, and just for the record, we'll create a pull request. We'll call it initial project for now. I'll put it in draft state to say, hey, we're still working on this. Pull request number 1. So if you want to check that out, you can go to the source code link at the bottom of the screen, and it'll take you here, and then just go to the pull requests. And you might be watching this video at a later point, so this initial project may be closed. It's right now open, but you might have to check over here closed, so you can see where the project is in a moment. I'll be right back. I'm just going to start my fan circulating some air. All right, thanks for your patience. Okay, so we're going to just dig into the Chainlit docs. We're going to go a little bit further down the README, and we're going to create this demo pie. I have an idea for the project architecture, but I need to get an idea, how does Chainlit work? What are the moving parts? What's, the chat lifecycle, for example. Here's an example of the chat lifecycle. Both of those. Okay, so we're going to create a new file. We'll just call it demo.py. As recommended. We'll copy this in so I just don't make mistakes, but we're going to read it. And anytime we copy and paste code or output from large language models or code from Stack Overflow, or even just, code reviewing as a team, we're going to make sure we're reading and understanding things as well. So Chainlit is CL. Okay, so I thought that was chat lifecycle. Makes sense though. Chainlit, this is a lifecycle callback though. We've got Copilot here to help us out. So Chainlit step. It's going to give us a fake tool that just waits for a little bit and then responds. And they're just calling this tool. Okay. So now we can already see that these chatbots, these chat agents can use tools. And a tool is just a Python function that returns some probably string. We're going to use type annotations here just to be more type safe. And let's see what this returns. Final update. I don't really know what this is going to return. It's going to return coroutine, any Indian literal. But what does final answer update return? Okay, so that's one thing I'm noticing now. This Chainlit code is not typed, which is optional in Python. We do like the type safety, though increasingly, and work on using type safety. Okay, then you have a main function that's essentially going to do everything. Function will be called every time a user inputs a message in the UI. So we have messages and tools. The agent can use tools. And you can name these functions anything, but I guess by convention it's calling it main. It takes ours, returns nothing. Okay, so then if it returns none, let's just say that. All right, we're awaiting. Sorry, that wasn't return. Okay. But at least this is typed in the demo. Okay, so we receive a message from the user. It's a chat Chainlit message. And we're going to await. We're going to send an empty message. So this is having a side effect. It's relying on side effects. That's not returning anything, but it's invoking some code that causes an effect on the screen in this case. Okay, so I suppose when we have this empty message, there might be like a throbber or some animation showing something is happening. So it just gets something on the screen, and it awaits the tool, which is going to sleep for 2 seconds. So this is simulating a delay in the response. This is my guess. Because these chat messages or your friends or whoever you're chatting with, there's usually a delay. But when they start doing something, you can usually have a typing indicator. So this is it. Now we're going to run it. So we'll stop the hello one. And we'll W might mean open the window. All right, so we have an assistant. Now it didn't say anything yet, so it's waiting for me. Hello, using tool. Okay, in the little animation showed that something was happening there, response from the tool. So I think that's why we send this final answer. You send a message, update the content to show we're using a tool, and somehow these annotations tell it to display this kind of component. And then of course it's just returning a string in this case. But that's really cool. So it's showing very powerful and flexible concept, tool use. This is one of the things we ascribe to intelligence in general, is the ability to use tools to make us more effective. Various animals exhibit tool use, and now we're applying this kind of generalized concept to these large language model agents as they're becoming known. Another interesting concept related is called artifact. A lot of times when we're working on something, we're producing an artifact. I don't know that this Chainlit is going to have artifact support. We'll have to get further in it and see what its main primitives are. But Anthropic just released an update of Claude 3.5, I think about a week ago. And it was the first time I've seen a large language model interface also use this concept of artifacts. And it was an eye-opener. It was a realization for me, a revelation for me, because I hadn't really connected the significance of these concepts. The tool use I understood intuitively, but I didn't recognize until I saw tools and artifacts together in the same kind of paradigm, what the kind of implications of this are. And we're seeing these assistive agents appearing in multiple tools that we use and where we work on artifacts. For example, GitHub chat right here is here in my tool, my IDE, where I'm working on an artifact, this demo.py, is able to assist me with that. But it wasn't until Claude 3.5 for me that it started to become more clear, this sort of conceptual landscape that we're working in. All right, so that's a pretty simple demo.py. We'll just commit that and push that up. So now we have our pull request open here. A couple of files changed. You can download this and play with it right away. It should work. And I'll have to worry about linting. These are generated code. It's not really linting it. That's not a big deal. I'll put a pre-commit thing in here to handle that for me automatically. That's it. You can have multimodal chats. So in other words, you can work with text or uploaded files or potentially audio, voice, images, chain of thought visualization, data persistence, and human feedback. This is the really important one, actually, that gets overlooked, I think, in a lot of these projects. We'll come back to this later, debug mode and authentication, but I'll just briefly touch on this. A lot of large language model project where we're building assistive agents, I think, are focusing heavily on automation. and essentially building chains or even graphs of agents and tools that can interact, and it leaves the user at the very start and very end of the process, where you prompt it and all these agents will then have a conversation and produce some output at the end, maybe even an artifact or multiple artifacts. But in my day-to-day work, we have this concept of peer review, where we sort of review each other's work quite often. And it's not always at the end of the thing. Sometimes it's throughout the process of working. We even have pair programming sessions where we're working on that side by side. So in other words, the human is in the loop. Not only is the human developing the thing, but their peer is in the loop. And I think the architecture of trying to automate the whole process of assistive agents it's noble, and I get the idea that it saves you a lot of time potentially, but I think it's misguided because in my experience working with these models, they need a lot of guidance and step by step. It sort of should be a feedback loop, and the human needs guidance as well. To be clear, it's nice to have the tool prompt me to help me think more thoroughly. As an assistant, thought assistant. So human feedback, human in the loop, I think is very important. Also paradigm. That's kind of one of the things that drew me to this Chainlit. So let's go ahead and get more deep into the code in the docs. And what I want to do is actually hook this up to an LLM. Now they've got these auto-playing videos, which is kind of annoying. But this is cool. You can hook it up to multiple agents. So let's just try an let's get something from OpenAI. Although I'm increasingly wanting to use Anthropic, but we're going to try the OpenAI Assistant example app, which I'm not using yet. We haven't set one of those up, but I can set one of those up. Benefits of this integration is that you can see the OpenAI API calls in a step in the UI, and you can explore them in the prompt playground. You'll also get full generation details, prompt completion, tokens per second in your literal AI dashboard if your project is using literal AI. Okay, so there are some enterprise-y things going on here. All-in-one observability, evaluation, and analytics platform using production-grade LLM apps. It offers multimodal logging. Okay, so it's like a nice interface to see what's going on in like a flame graph type stuff. You have the amount of time spent, token usage, and things like that. This is going to be very useful for a lot of projects, and it isn't inherently tied to Chainlit. It's just Chainlit is the open source tool, and literal AI seems to be more commercial or proprietary, I should say. You can commercialize open source stuff. It's cool. It's fine to do. All right, well, let's come back to it. You gotta be careful about becoming a conflict of interest. So what we need to do to set up an OpenAI, working installation of Chainlit, OpenAI package is installed, OpenAI API key, basic understanding of Python programming. Okay, I think I've got all those except this. I'll have to work on it. No, I'm just kidding. I have a basic understanding, but there's a lot to it, a lot of depth there. So it tells me to write the application logic with some code, fill in the environment variables in a .env file, literal API key. I will do that off stream, and I will keep this from getting checked in. Notice .env convention here. That's not only for Python virtual environments, but for environment variables. So that's already in our git ignore. So we'll just create that. And you just define it like this. And I will put that there, and I'll grab that off stream real quick. So hopefully I won't mess that up. Creating a new secret. This one is called create the secret key, copy it, bring this over here. We should be good to go. Hopefully that won't be logging out to the, anyway, I can delete it. Hopefully it won't be logging out to the console or something like that. All right, there we go, we got it. Got the environment variable. I just kind of want to skim these instructions first, and then we'll go through them and then run the application. So it's actually pretty straightforward. Not a lot of lines of code here. So we'll create, they're saying app.py makes sense. Copy this, read through it. Okay, so we've already got a missing dependency according to pylines. Now this could be, gosh dang it, hit the wrong key, Control F. So they don't make any assumptions, I suppose. So there's some implicit behavior here, it looks like. Because you just have this, you're sending messages to that. Interesting. You instrument it and then you start working with it. So it has an abstraction. Okay. Async OpenAI. So that might be a bit of a problem for more advanced projects where you might want to have multi-model agents. Anyway, I just want to kind of get a quick start, and for this project I don't plan to use multi-models, but we will have a system prompt, which is this, and then user messages. All right, so it looks like we need to pip install OpenAI. Now our import is resolved. Okay, so that should kind of be in the it is in the instructions. All right. So it just doesn't include it at the beginning. All right. It's a bit tacit. So let's read through the code. The knowledge. So we got OpenAI and Chainlit instances. We're going to create an async OpenAI client and then instrument the OpenAI client. All right. So this is a bit magical. Okay, so it checks for OpenAI. And then literal AI seems to be a package. This is curious. It's a company and a package. No description. Some releases. It's Apache licensed. Where is the source? Huh. Kind of interesting. It wasn't, I didn't see it on their GitHub repo. All right. Yeah, so this is getting pretty deep into it. We don't need to quite get to this level, but okay. So artwork, we're explicitly using the client. We have some settings. I like to have a little bit of creativity. I think this temperature should be 0.0 through 2, and the higher the temperature, the more creative, or in other words, randomly the agent will generate the output. The lower is stricter, and it will stick closer to the prompt and to the system prompt and the retrieved text. And I'd like to use GPT 4.0. So one thing, it would be nice if this was an enum instead of a raw string. If there were an enum of models, so that I could see what are the options. But I get it, you would have to maintain the model every time the enum every time the OpenAI interface and offerings change. So it's not a very convenient thing. But all I can do is kind of guess. GPT 4.0. Oh, I don't think that's the correct guess. I should leave it as 3.5 for now. We'll just get it working, and then I'll tweak the model. I'm getting ahead of myself. And I don't know the settings either, so that's one challenge. Okay, so we get a message and we await. So we create chat completion from the OpenAI async AI. So basically you could decouple the whole project from Chainlit, and more or less your core of the code is right here. And it's just now putting it in the Chainlit message, but you could take this response choices and just return it from Flask or something like that, or Fast API or something like that. But this Chainlit message is a little bit of a nicer interface, I suppose. So let's just format this a little bit easier to see. All right, it's trailing comma for the win. Otherwise things get so long and wrapped. So we're getting the response choices 0 message content. You could even do, you don't have to do everything in one line, but let's roll. So what we're going to do is Chainlit run, instead of demo py, we're going to run app. OpenAI environment variable. All right, so this may, no, I've actually set that. OpenAI API key environment variable. So let me just double check in my inv file. It's literal API key here in the environment file. So that could be a typo. Let me see where I got that from. So the API key environment variable was wrong. So it loads the environment file and we'll say hello. Hola, en que puedo ayudarte hoy. Okay, I don't know. Sí. Okay, it's stuck in Spanish. Okay, so I didn't read the system prompt. You always reply in Spanish. All right. How about just you're a helpful bot? You always reply in haikus. Hello. How can I help? What do you need assistance with? I am here for you. Nice. Okay, so one thing I'll point out there is we've got hot reload. I made a change here and it just reloaded. I didn't have to hit the enter or anything like that. Let's see if we can change this and if it breaks. I think just 4.0 would maybe work. 4.0, save that. Ahoy, whoops. Whoops. Moi. Hello there, my friend. How can I assist today? Tell me, let's begin. How can I calculate the square root. To find squares root, to find square root's grace, use a calculator space or by hand, slow pace. All right. I showed this to my friend Andre, and that was the question. He's like a scientist, and that was the question he asked of this other experiment I'm working on. Okay, but hey, that's the thing. So the guess for 4.0 was correct, GPT 4.0, and the results I think for 4.0 are a little bit, or probably significantly better than 3.5 Turbo. And it's following our instructions. So the system prompt kind of tells that bot how to behave, and then the message comes from the user. So the role is user and role and system here kind of indicate those. And I like just trailing commas. As we saw, this message here has a trailing comma, so it's formatted like that. And I put a trailing comma here, and that's formatted. Makes it a little easier to read. And then it spreads the settings. So the messages list is containing a system prompt, user prompt, and whatever settings are there. And these are just settings probably found in the OpenAI docs. And we don't specifically need a multi-model chat. Okay, so we do have a typing indicator. So awaiting CL message. I think that the typing indicator just comes by virtue of me sending a message. That's just how Chainlit displays, because I don't see anything here. This await has to happen, and nothing has yielded from this. And this doesn't return anything either. So this is kind of, just to make it clear, our expectations is that nothing's going to return from here. So this has some side effect. All right. Now we know that is how it works. Clears my chat history, and we're not persisting anything. So let's go ahead and commit this, push that up, and hey, you've got a working friendly haiku bot. Very good. What time is it? All right, 40 minutes in. Let me check these docs real quick, because that was one gotcha, one possible improvement here. Where did they instruct me to set the API key? That was probably in the add your OpenAI API key and OpenAI key variable. So yeah, that was just my lack of attention to detail. I do have troubles reading sometimes, as I think most of us struggle with that when there's a lot of text on the screen especially. But it just illustrates, this is actually a pretty well documented project so far. It feels pretty good. It's like helping me step by step. And I just kind of, I zoomed through it. I sort of skimmed it and thought that was the variable, which this is, but for a different purpose if you're using literal AI. A literal AI's debugging assistant, I suppose. Yeah. Oh, here we go. And the W flag tells Chainlit to enable auto reloading. So W for watch. It's going to watch the files. So you don't need to restart your server every time you make a change to your application. Your chatbot UI starts at localhost 8000. And it automatically opened up the thing, so I didn't have to think about that. Hey, but this is cool. Need to pip freeze. Actually, I just realized. So this is one thing, using pip, you have to, you have a little bit of, it's a bit lower level of a package management workflow. You have a bit more, not boilerplate, but yeah, it's a bit more procedural, something like that. I don't know. Whereas if I was using another package manager, oftentimes they're managing those dependencies, they're automatically creating a lock file, they're updating your PyProject TOML, things like that. Pip, it's not quite there, it may never be there, so these other package management tools have evolved. I hope the Python ecosystem can kind of converge on one of them and make it an officially endorsed solution. But for the sake of simplicity and least common denominator for this project, everybody that's got Python installed has pip. If you're on Windows, Mac, Linux, it's just there. And so let's create the README file with some basic instructions. And for that, we will use ChatGPT to save some keystrokes. Here we go. Whoopsie daisy. All right. And what we'll do is give it our initial README file and then have it just generate some simple developer instructions. Something, okay. I'm developing an open source Python web application and would like to include a README describing the project, which I've already started writing. Within that README, we would like to have some very simple and straightforward, easy to follow instructions for setting the project up, as that is a common gotcha in the Python ecosystem in particular. There is a requirements.txt file in the project, and the developer will ideally set up a virtual environment using venv, activate that virtual environment, and then install the dependencies from the README, from the requirements.txt. Let's augment the README with some basic developer instructions so we can make sure this open source project is easy to use. And we'll just paste in the README. It's not very much to it right now. But good, it gave me Windows specific instructions, Windows and Mac and Linux. That's also a gotcha that you have to do differently on both of those. I think people are still going to struggle with the instructions. I've just seen it. It's very frustrating on Windows, especially. I don't want to make any sweeping statements, but I've just observed much more difficulty on Windows development environments with Python than on Mac and Linux. And I'll just have to update the run command, but this is looking good. And we can say maybe hire Python. I don't have a troubleshooting guide, but hey, it's a good template. So you can see a little bit of creativity involved there. You could call it hallucination. Generativity, there's different words for it. Humans exhibit all those traits as well. Hallucinations, creativity, generativity, bullshitting. If you saw the presidential debate this week, let's say 10 or higher installed. We don't have a troubleshooting guide. If you encounter any issues, open discussion. And our discussions are currently not activated. Unless I rename the repo, that should be fine. So our run command is, for example, this. Yeah, BInv is fine. That's still in the get ignore, isn't it? In the get ignore. Let's double check that. Yep, good to go. And we'll clone it. Grab the clone URL. They're using HTTPS. I don't know if that's the recommended way of doing it anymore, but all right. It looks like it's pretty good. Blank line. And there's articles written about this. This is such a challenge, this virtual environment stuff. I don't know. I mean, it works once you get it to work, it works. And then you just sort of get that as muscle memory, so you don't have to think about it every time. You get it on your own environment. But even then, there are gotchas and things blow up, especially with like wheels, like distributing binaries built for different packages and Python versions. And, there's various package managers, one of which has even forked the Python packaging ecosystem because of the lack of or binary support and being able to build packages as part of a pip install. I don't know, it's a mess. I don't have a lot of depth of knowledge there, but I've just been around enough to see that the number of tools that have emerged in this space and the complexities they solve and the various trade-offs. So keeping it simple. So yeah, we basically have this pull request now. It's got the README and everything like that. So I'd say at this point, I'm going to just merge this pull request, mark it as ready for review. We've got development instructions and a basic working project that people can just use. And Sorcery is reviewing the pull request. I'm going to probably disable Sorcery. It's a bit noisier than I was hoping. It's an AI bot that kind of scans your project, your pull requests, and suggests improvements. But most of the improvements I've seen have been pretty sometimes misguided or just, I haven't been inspired by the results, and I found them more actually kind of getting in the way. All right, so discussion on GitHub, that works, got it. All right, looking good. So we'll switch back over here. We'll go to the main branch and pull in the changes. So it's about 1 hour in. So let's go ahead and we'll just do a review of what we've done today, and I'll take a break. And I can publish this small snippet as a video for people who just want to build a Chainlit project. So I'll pause for a moment, come back, and we'll review the project and a little bit about Chainlit, and then demo the assistant. Hello. Let's take a quick look at how to build a Chainlit application. to chat with OpenAI GPT-4o. This project is open source on GitHub, and today we took the initial steps of building just a simple app. We haven't gone into the broader idea yet, so I'm just getting ready for that. We're using Chainlit, an open source project that helps you build conversational AIs in minutes, and it lives up to the promise and it has a nice user interface. Here's the result of today's session. I have a haiku chatbot just using ChatGPT-4o. And all of this interface is built for you by Chainlit. So you just write a little bit of Python code and it works. So let's take a quick look at the source. Again, we're available on GitHub, so you can check out the project and fork it and experiment and make your own ideas come to life. I have one idea I'm going to be working on over a little bit of a long term and hopefully deploy actually soon for demonstration purposes. But this foundation can serve many different types of projects. So in our README, we have setup instructions, how to clone, create a virtual environment, activate that on Windows, Mac, and Linux, install the dependencies, and run our basic app.py. If you do get stuck, feel free to open a discussion on GitHub, and I'll try to help you out. I'm glad to do that. In any case, let's take a look at app.py. It's fairly straightforward. All of the requirements are here. We had to install the Chainlit and OpenAI packages. All their requirements came in automatically, but those are the two top-level dependencies. Chainlit and OpenAI, you can actually see it here at the top of the file. So we create an async OpenAI client from the OpenAI package, and we instrument the OpenAI client. So this, I believe, is using instrumentation, so you have observability. You can look into the client, you can see what's happening, how many tokens were used, how long was spent during the call. We're not using this instrumentation so far, but there's another companion project for Chainlit where they give you an API key and you can see how your flow is performing and where your costs are accruing or accumulating. In any case, we're following pretty closely their tutorials, and they did instrument it, but I believe this is an optional step. What we need to do is set up some settings for OpenAI. It's worth mentioning that the code is mostly portable. Even if you don't end up using Chainlit, you might develop your own user interface. This code you can just take out and use in a different flow, creating, for example, a fast API or Flask endpoint that serves the response. We're going to use ChatGPT-4o. And it can be a little bit creative. The temperature should vary between 0 and 2. The higher the temperature, the more sort of hallucinatory or creative or generative you'll get your responses. Lower temperatures will stick more closely to the prompt, the system prompt, for example, or any other retrieval augmented generation text you insert into the prompt. So Chainlit has what are called life cycle hooks, and the chat has several stages in the life cycle, and one is when it receives a message. So we use this decorator here, and you can just create an async function with any name, and that function is decorated with the Chainlit on message decorator and receives then a Chainlit message. It doesn't return anything. This has pure side effects or something like that. There's no return, so we're not functional in that sense. We then use some OpenAI specific code to await the OpenAI client chat completions endpoint. We create a message here, messages list, and start with a system message. And this basically tells the agent how to behave. You are a helpful bot. You always reply in haiku. So when I said hello, we got a response, hello there, my friend. How can I assist today? I'm here to help you. Then the next item in the list is the user message. So that would be what we see here. And that's coming from the message, which is a Chainlit message, came in through the Chainlit form submission. We'll get the content out of that. I believe you could optionally insert other messages in here, such as text from a retrieval step We're going to look at that a little bit later. And then you spread these settings to tell the model how to, which model you want to use and temperature and things like that. And I haven't looked at the documentation, but there are additional settings you can pass in. So we're going to await the response from OpenAI, and then we're going to pass the response kind of content to Chainlit by instantiating a Chainlit message. And this, I believe, has the UI side effect. Notice it creates a little animation there to show it's waiting on a response. Chainlit is so cool. Threads of knowledge intertwine, wisdom in each link. Interesting. And then we send that to the UI. That's where we have the side effect of creating the initial component. I think actually on form submit, it creates the initial component with a small animation showing some things happening. And then on this await, it sends the actual response. So there's two things that are happening. Chainlit is wiring all of that up for us behind the scenes. So really, in less than 30 lines, around 30 lines of code or so, we have a fully functional chatbot using GPT-4o. All right, pretty cool. Off to new adventures. I hope you're doing well. Have a great day.